so speaking of this year's team, how do you feel what is your overall impression of them, from the from a growth standpoint, from when you've seen them at the first game against the national ranked #1 team Gonzaga? How have you seen them grow since that Gonzaga game?
Well, we've had back-to-back years where we've played great teams in our first game. Last year it was Duke.
Yeah.
We didn't play that great, and we were right there, but we had 28 turnovers. Gonzaga, the story of that game was turnovers. We let them go on a massive run early, kind of took a punch in the mouth, but then came back and tied it up, but then was careless with the ball again. So I love another shot at Gonzaga. I think they are the best team in the country. I was really, really impressed with them.
Yeah.
But we didn't play very well and still had a chance in that game. And, they're dealing with their first game jitters as well.
Yeah.
But I think we've valued the ball more. We've become a lot more efficient with every possession. That game, Bill didn't quite have the rotation down yet because he just didn't know. You had, I got to put this guy in for 2 or 3 minutes, and if he doesn't make it, I got to put the next guy. And so now there's a little more fluid. There's a little more rhythm. I think guys have obviously stepped up. I mean, the thing I like most about this team is that we've shown that we can win in multiple ways. You go to Lubbock, you don't play very well. You didn't make shots. The only guy that made shots was Ochai. Everyone else offensively was bad. Christian Brown has 2 points. But he showed that he can do other things to help the team win, and other guys did things that they don't normally do, and Ochai made shots, and we get a really big opening the conference season up with a win on the road. And then we come right back and shoot as good as we can shoot. I mean, it was crazy how well we shot the ball against a good defensive team. So I like the fact that we've shown that we can make big shots when we need to. I don't think this team has the firepower to flip a switch because we don't really have that guy. We got good guys. I love Jalen. I love Christian. I love Marcus. We got guys, but we don't have like that guy that we can just count on getting a bucket from when it's or we're down by 12. Who's going to go on a run? Jalen's done it, but he hadn't really consistently done it. I'm not saying he can't be that guy, but you were a part of teams that kind of similar to this year. That I mean, I say this all the time. Who can remember who the leading scorer was on the national championship team?
Yeah.
I mean, and it's hard because there was like 7 guys.
Yeah.
There was like 7 guys that could do it.
Yeah.
I think it was Brandon, but it was
I wouldn't have known right off the top. It would have just been a guess.
And I could
have guessed so many guys.
And that's like saying right now, who's leading our team in scoring this year? I mean, it's Christian, it's Jalen, it's Ochai. I think if you ask everybody at the beginning of the year who they thought it would be, I think 80% of the people would probably say David. And he's so my point being, it's a different guy every night. Ochai's probably been the most consistent, but I think it's a good thing. But we can't rely on, okay, you guys aren't shooting well. Ochai is going to give us 25 and 8.
Yeah.
But, he didn't score against Creighton and we still figured it out. So that's what I like about this team.
Yeah. Pretty versatile. I mean, it's a lot. I think as a coach, it's a lot easier when you don't just have that one guy that, offensive or defensive teams or opponents can just hone in on. Like you said, there's multiple guys on this team. They still, like you said, you talked about a little bit about, and I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about guys that need to step up. You mentioned Ochai and you mentioned Jalen kind of in that boat. I mean, who do you feel besides Jalen? You kind of mentioned Jalen a little bit more. Who do you feel is kind of next as far as that, more so ready to take that torch as far as, all right, need a bucket, I can go out and get it? Who do you think maybe 1 or 2 guys can be? Who can that be?
I don't know if it's necessarily a guy that needs to step up and make the bucket. I think the guy that needs to evolve and play better is David. I mean, when David played well against West Virginia, everything opened up. Spacing was better. We got a lot of open shots because David was dealing in the paint. He didn't have a great game. He demanded, the other team to play defense against him.
Yep.
He didn't just get it and make his crazy moves and miss it where he's not a threat. He was a threat in that game, and that opened everything up. So I think we know what we're going to get from Jalen, Christian, and Coach and Marcus. So far, we haven't seen what we're going to get on a consistent basis from David. And so for us to make the next step, I don't think it's necessarily a go-to guy. I just think that David has to be there because he's it. Like we don't have other big guys. We've dealt with that before where Landon Lucas was the guy after an injury to Doak, and we did not have a backup. We had Silvio and you had Mitch, but as far as a marquee guy in the middle, David's got to be better. And I don't think that's not me being a jerk or anything. That's probably what he hears from Bill and Norm and Jarence and Kurt every day. And David's a great kid. He gets it. He knows he hasn't played to his potential yet, but it's hard to be a backup like David was to a great player, and then the next year be the guy. And that takes there's a lot of pressure being the guy. And so far he hasn't excelled with that notion, but doesn't mean he won't.
Yeah. I think David's going to, continue to get better. Like you mentioned, it's tough to fill a big void when you milk who can protect the rim. You can just throw it up there. Pretty much anytime he touches it in the paint, he's going to dunk it. I mean, it's just tough to replace a guy that's so athletic like that.
Well, it's hard for Brian and I to not constantly talk about Doak and Dot because there's so many plays in the course of a game where, it used to be you just drive down the middle and just throw it near the rim and he would dunk it. We don't have that anymore. We took that for granted for 4 years because Doak was the best field goal percentage shooter we've ever had because of how athletic he was. So as a broadcaster, it's hard to not say, gosh, if Doak was here or if this was here, but it's in your head. And I gotta do a better job of saying, all right, he ain't here.
Yeah, and he ain't coming back.
He ain't coming back, but it sticks in your head. And I think, he was our security blanket. He was our Ruby, and he was the one that Marcus benefited from Dot and Doak too, because he could take more chances defensively. He could be that ball hawking defender that he could be because he had Dot out front and Doak underneath. And now that he doesn't have that, I'm not saying Marcus isn't having a good year. He's not having the kind of year that I think everyone expected. And that's partly due to not having the supporting cast.